Welcome to the November 26, 2018 meeting of the Florissant City Council. You all please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Hanky? Pagano? Parson? Siam? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Here.
Shildroth?
Next item, approval on minutes. Are there any corrections and additions to the meetings in the executive meeting minutes of November 12th, 2018? Hearing none. Councilman Shildroth moves to approve the minutes, second by Councilman Harris. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Next item, meeting and executive minutes of the November 12th meeting. Just did that.
Yep, sorry.
Hearing from citizens.
There you go. Do it again.
Next item on the agenda is hearing from citizens. This is the time to speak at the council on any issues not necessarily on the agenda for 3 minutes. This is not a question and answer period. If you'd like to speak to a council member or the mayor, please see us after the meeting and we will get with you. If you are here to speak on a public hearing, please wait and speak during the public hearing when it is announced.
That's the only one I don't have for public hearing.
First, Derek Stadley.
Thank you, Councilman.
Welcome, Derek.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Come before you tonight to talk on 2 issues. One is...
Derek, can you please state
Oh, yeah, sorry, forgot that part. Derek
address and who you're with?
Derek Stanley, Meridian Services. We're your city's waste and recycling provider.
Thank you.
Here tonight to speak on 2 topics. One is service, and the other is recycling. I'm going to talk on recycling first because it's kind of the inevitable one that it's coming down the road, whether it's us or anyone else. We're going to be proposing that the city move to dual stream recycling, where we separate fiber from rigid materials, and we'll be coming before you in the future to talk about that whenever you all schedule us. I think your 10th meeting is a possibility. The second topic is, but we wanted you guys to be thinking about that. It's happening. We applied for grant funds from St. Louis County to help do education in that process. The second is to briefly talk about service, and we had a tough Thanksgiving, and I wanted to come and address that. And I can't stand before you and tell you that Meridian's going to be able to fix everything. And you guys may have to start us down a different path. We don't know. But I want you to know that we are working on it. We're working hard on it. And we're trying to make that transition and do right by you guys. So I wanted to just come and address that real quick with you. And look forward to seeing you on the 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Yes, sir.
Thank God the rest of the cards are public hearings. Yep.
Next item is communication. Seeing none. Next item is public hearing. Public hearing number 1811033.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the City Council of Florissant, Missouri in the council chambers at 955 Rue St. Francois on Monday, November 26, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. on the following proposition: to amend the zoning code concerning short-term loan establishments. Citizens and parties of interest will have an opportunity to be heard at said public hearing. Anyone with special needs should contact the city clerk at least 5 days before said public hearing by calling 839-7630 or TDD 839-5142.
Mr. Hessel.
Thank you. I know Mr. Lum is going to speak on the matter as well, but I brought this matter to the staff's attention. So let me give you a little bit of background that Phil may not have. Of course, back in the day, we'll all remember that we had banks, and then the state legislature authorized consumer loan companies like the old household finance that some of you may remember when they were not banks, but they were authorized to do business within the state of Missouri. And time gets away from me. I'm going to guess 15 plus years ago, the Missouri legislature then authorized payday loans and title loans. And I'm sure most of you will remember when they came into business that cities adopted regulations because they were significantly different than consumer loan companies and from banks. Some cities also prohibited them. The city of St. Anne in particular, a case went all the way up to the Missouri Supreme Court. The Missouri Supreme Court determined that cities could not ban or prohibit the payday loans and short-term loan establishments, as we came to call them, but you could regulate them. Several city attorneys got together, including myself and Kevin O'Keefe, and we primarily came to a conclusion that we would create definitions for consumer loan companies and distinguish consumer loan companies from banks, and then distinguish both consumer loan companies and banks from these short-term loan establishments. So in your code, you will see a definition for short-term loan establishments as well as consumer loan companies. Several years ago now, the Missouri legislature also adopted legislation clarifying that you could have a consumer loan company that is referred to as a traditional installment loan lender. And within that legislation, and for purpose of reference, it's in section 408.512 of the revised statutes of Missouri. The Missouri legislature included a provision stating that no ordinance can prevent, restrict, or discourage traditional installment loan lenders from opening in any location where any lender who makes loans payable in equal installments over more than 90 days is permitted. In essence, that traditional installment loan lenders needed to be treated on an equal plane as banks. And again, these installment loan lenders are not short-term loan establishments. I anticipate that you're going to hear from a representative of Regional Finance, which brought this matter to our attention, and they will explain that they are vastly different than short-term loan establishments. As a result of all of that, staff is recommending, and Phil presented planning and zoning, so not only staff, but planning and zoning is recommending that we amend the definitions within the zoning code by changing the definition of consumer loan company, adding a definition for installment loan lenders, and changing the definition of short-term loan establishments again, so there's a clear distinction between those. And again, Phil can go into more detail. Last and probably least, we also need to correct a codification error is the only way I can explain it. And probably the easiest way of doing that is let me put the current special use permit provisions dealing with consumer loan companies and short-term loan establishments, and so that you can see how this codification error arises.
There you go.
Hopefully everybody can read that, but you'll see, and if you look at our code, we go in alphabetical order. Joe, you can't, well, I'll read it for those who can't quite read it. But you'll see we go in alphabetical order for special uses, and this is right out of our code, identifying all the special uses that are authorized within a particular B2 or B3 zoning district. And you'll see it follows schools, self-storage facilities, consumer loan company. Obviously, that's not in alphabetical order. Then it goes on to include certain provisos or provisions that the City Council intended, which include 2 fully operational state-of-the-art security cameras shall be installed to monitor and clearly record the activities at all times. The recording shall be kept for a minimum of 30 days. A panic alarm wired to the Florissant Police Department or reputable security firm that is acceptable to the Florissant Police Department shall be installed. No more than 10% of the windows can be obstructed with signs so as to interfere with visibility into the business, and consumer loan company will not be permitted if a total number of short-term loan establishments exceed 1 per 10,000 population in the city, or if the location of the short-term loan establishment is within 2 miles of another short-term loan establishment. So you'll see in that language that about halfway through, we jumped from consumer loan companies to short-term loan. And you can tell, again, by the alphabetical order, it was not supposed to be consumer loans. It was supposed to address short-term loan establishments. So the last amendment we're proposing is to remove that provision, number 46, to change that to more clearly identify that it's relating to short-term loan establishments. So those are, in essence, the 3 changes that the staff is recommending. I know that Regional Finance has a representative here this evening. You may hear from them as well to talk about how they are not a short-term loan establishment, because I know that many of you, if not all of you on the City Council, as well as the Mayor, feel strongly that short-term loan establishments need to be restricted differently than consumer loan and installment loan lenders. Phil?
Thank you, Ms. Hessel.
Yes, just a few brief comments on planning and zoning presentation. Thank you, John, for saying an awful lot in this very short period of time. But it's largely a matter of state law versus our city ordinance and aligning those two. That's how it was presented to planning and zoning. And of course, Mr. Hessel was approached. And I would just comment also that regional, it puts code errors like this in the current zoning code. As the zoning official, puts me in a difficult position. It's either a bank or it's anything else, and this was anything else. Therefore, I had to refuse the application for regional to go into a certain location. This has happened, I believe, on 2 other occasions since I've been here in the last 9 years, so I've refused a total of 3. But recently, state law has changed to misalign our city ordinance with state law, so that's why we need to make the code change.
Thank you, Mr. Lum. Before we close the public hearing, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this public hearing? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Gary Fader. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Hush Blackwell in Clayton. As Mr. Hessel indicated, Regional Finance, who is very much affected by this proposed change, wanted to just share some comments with you. I'm here tonight with a representative of Regional, a Vice President, Dan Olson, who I guess can raise his hand. He can add whatever I might have forgotten. Again, by way of background, Regional Finance had essentially found a location at 3401 North Highway 67, applied for an occupancy permit, and as Mr. Lum indicated, was turned down on the basis that it was a short-term lender and therefore was subject to some restrictions about locations. Again, Regional is, if you think of banking on a sort of a spectrum with banks on one end of the spectrum and payday lenders and title lenders at the other end, Regional has sought to be very much in the middle of that spectrum. That is to say, they are definitely a consumer lender. They do not make home loans, as we might be familiar with getting from a bank, but they do make consumer loans. And the most important thing to consider is they do not make short-term loans, and they do not basically follow any of the characteristics that you might associate with title lenders and payday lenders. Historically, there was an issue that was brought to the attention of the state of Missouri a few years ago that the type of lender which Regional is was being characterized as a short-term lender, being lumped together with title lenders and payday lenders, even though it is not. It received from the state legislature recognition of being a traditional installment loan lender. And I think the most important characteristic of that is that the loans that are made, consumer loans, are similar to the loan you might get on your home in that they are monthly payments of principal and interest. None of them are ever shorter than 13 months, to certainly distinguish it in terms of short-term practices. They are subject to prepayment without interest, but are never required to be repaid within 13 months. What the legislature basically did in creating this statutory section that Mr. Hessel referred to is essentially said if you follow certain lending practices and you don't do what title lenders do or payday lenders do, you can be characterized as a traditional installment loan lender. So for example, things that payday lenders do or title lenders do, asking the borrower to actually turn over their auto title, we clearly do not do that. Asking someone to make a payment, to turn out a post-dated check that sort of matches up with their compensation. Those are traditional the practices of a title lender and a payday lender. We're specifically barred from doing that by the statute. We again make traditional loans based on having applicants fill out information about their financial wherewithal, because again, the loan is not based on the title or on a paycheck. It's based on the ability of the lender to repay it. The market is sort of middle America. The loans typically don't exceed $12,000. Again, they're consumer loans, but they are loans that are made on a very different way from what you would see at a title lender. So what the legislature did essentially was said, if you make monthly installment payments, the loans are at least a year or longer. Many of our loans are 3 to 5 years. That makes you look a lot more like a bank, and in fact, you should be treated like a bank for zoning purposes. So that's what the statute says. We qualify under that statute. Mr. Hessel and I talked about that, and I think he recognized that the state statute should be followed by the city of Florissant. And so that was the reason, I think, at least in part, we're here tonight, was in order to basically bring the state law and the city ordinance into conformance. We have a facility, an office, as I indicated, that actually we have leased as of November 1st. We'd love to open it up. We know your practice is generally to have multiple readings. We would ask your consideration, if possible, this ordinance could be adopted tonight. That will allow us to open. But again, if that's not your practice, we understand and we will certainly be patient. But we would like to open up, and I wanted again to give you some background on why we are here, and so we are very supportive of what is being proposed. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, will we be cashing any kind of checks here whatsoever?
I'm sorry,
Will we be cashing any kind of checks whatsoever at this facility?
cashing checks?
Correct.
Not to my knowledge. I'll have Mr. Olson, if you don't mind, just in
Please.
case both of us can, if I don't
Gotcha.
know the answer, I won't waste your time. So.
The question I had, will we be cashing any kind of checks here?
No, we will not.
Okay, not even from your own loans to, if I'm a customer, come in, I'm getting a loan from you guys, so I'm not walking out with no cash in hand, correct?
No, we are not going to do that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. So there's no cash on hand at this facility,
We
correct?
keep cash on hands for payments, in case somebody comes in and they don't have the exact cash. Typically, a cash drawer would only have a couple $100s in it, though.
That's all you say you're going to have on, is a couple $100 at the most? No.
Correct.
Mr. Parson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Fader, I was just wondering if your client has any of these establishments opened around the St. Louis area yet, or would this be the first one in this area?
We are getting into the state of Missouri and to the St. Louis area, but you want to address that, Dan?
We're open in South St. Louis, Shrewsbury, I believe it is.
In Shrewsbury?
Correct.
Okay.
We're also open in St. Peters, Columbia, Springfield. We plan on opening next month in Crestwood, Arnold, and Jennings.
Okay.
And actually tonight, Overland is, I think, is approving a location in that city as of tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parson. Mr. Hinkie.
Yes, good evening. Good evening, gentlemen. We're on here. Just a couple questions on it. just so I can get a feel for, I know we're trying to align state, city ordinance with state statute. What type, will there be collateral for these consumer loans? Are these basically signature loans on your credit worthiness?
Well, I mean, I can say that the collateral in some cases would be personal property. It could include a vehicle, but the difference again is we wouldn't take the title, but we would basically, we put a lien, as is done in the state of Missouri, put a lien against the title, but it would never be the sole collateral for a loan. It's simply, it's the typical kind of personal property type of lending you do as a consumer lender. You want to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, I would say on the smaller loans, $1,000, $2,000, probably personal property. On the larger loans, a lot of them would be secured by a vehicle.
Okay, so we do have collateral for these loans.
Correct.
And I know this is a very broad question, but could you give me an example of the range of interest rates that will be on your loans from the least creditworthy to the best creditworthy?
So the rates, they would start in the mid-20s. As a company, we have over 350 branches across the U.S. We just opened in the state of Missouri and Wisconsin. That brings us up to 11 states. I would say on average at the company level, we are a public company, so it's disclosed properly, probably in the mid-30s.
So
Starting at 20s, our average yield in the portfolio, 350 branches in the mid-30s.
So just so I understand, the interest rate somewhere between the mid-20s and the mid-30s.
Average would be mid-30s.
Okay, thank you.
We might add, I know you didn't ask me this, but we did, I think, share with Mr. Hessel, just because he, I think, asked the question about interest rates. By comparison with a title lender or payday lender, you may see rates as high as 300%, 600%. So while these rates are obviously higher than you would get at a more traditional bank, they are just not even in the same universe as what title lenders and payday lenders charge.
Thank you, Ms. Hickey.
Thank you, no more.
Okay. Seeing no more, Mr. Hinkey moves to close this public hearing, second by Mr. Shuldroff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Public hearing is closed. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Next item is public hearing number 1811034.
A public hearing will be held by the Florissant City Council in the council chambers at 955 Rue St. Francois on Florissant, Missouri on Monday, November 26, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. on the following proposition. To rezone for Smart Senior Living LLC, the property located at 1475 and 1415 Carla Drive from R6 Multiple Family Dwelling District to PEU Planned Environmental District Unit to allow for the construction of a new senior living facility complex. Citizens will have an opportunity to be heard. Anyone with special needs should contact the city clerk at least 5 days before said public hearing by calling 839-760-30 or TDDI 839-5142.
Excuse me.
How you doing, sir?
First winter tickle. Good evening. My name is Greg, or Gregory Lee. I go by Greg. I'm with Double Diamond Construction and Development. I'm here representing Smart Senior Living. I provided a fairly thick package of material. It can be a little bit overwhelming, so perhaps a short version is what we're asking for is something that's currently zoned R6 to be zoned R6 with just some slight modifications. We've gone into it, I believe, on a couple of the slides that I'd presented. We've taken and we tried to dumb the density down a little bit. I believe we currently could put, if you were to follow the present rules under the R6, 118 units on there. If you count it the way we're doing it, it would be 88 units. What we're looking to do is, it's called Smart Senior Living. For those who have done any of the reading about, like anything else that starts on each coast and works its way in, we're looking at putting forth a greenhouse concept on what I call the donut hole, or the inside of the circle. And then on the outside would be independent living. So it would be a relatively self-serving. There would be 28 independent living apartments on the outside, plus some support facilities. One would be a maintenance facility that's in a back right corner as you stare at that plan. The other is a community building which would serve as both an intake from a leasing point of view and also provide a station for the oversight of the folks that are in the center, in the middle of the donut hole, that those folks would be under what you would consider more of a light or level 2 assisted living and memory care facility. Within one of those plans that we put forth, we've shown that we have some fencing to take and protect, those loved ones that have those moments during dementia, Alzheimer's, et cetera, from wandering off. Our intention is to take and keep this as a 55 and older community like that. And again, smart senior living. And at that stage, again, I've put forth a pretty good volume of information, and I could make guesses as to the important questions you may ask, but perhaps it'd be better to turn it over to the council and let them quiz me accordingly.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I have a couple questions, sir. Are you going to be the general contractor on this project?
Yes, sir.
Do you have, are you going to be just a general and you're going to sub everything out?
Yes, sir.
Do you, I know you, North County, Florissant area, we're a very strong,
Union.
labor-friendly community.
Yes, I believe that I had indicated that both to the mayor during a meeting a number of months ago, and to Mr. Henke, and to Mr. Simon an email again this morning where I provided him a batch of information. I'm very cognizant I grew up in Florissant like that. I went to Hazelwood West, as did the gentleman who is now the owner of this land and is one of the co-developers. I made it clear from day one that the two things this needed to be, we needed to make it clear that this was not subsidized housing, and we needed to make it clear that this was going to be built union. So this will be all union construction.
You answered my second question.
Again, I can anticipate some of the questions, but sometimes it's better to let the council ask.
Okay, thank you. And you're saying you have 118 units
No.
possibly?
We could possibly put, if you go by the way your ordinance is written, this site could have a density of 118 units. What we've done is with the exception of the one building that was framed out and sheathed and roofed, with the exception of that building that's 3-story, the idea was to go with a lower profile like that. So you have the 5 buildings on what I'll call the donut hole or inside the ring like that. Those are about 7,800, 7,900 square foot each. And then you have 5-plexes kind of mirroring up the existing 5-plex townhome that's there. There's 5-plexes with the exception of the one corner of the property that's relatively close to Kensington Apartments. It's a 3-plex because it's a small little notch in there. And those total out 88 units if you include what the facility would hold on the inside, which would be a total of 60. It's a 60-bed or 60-unit facility on the interior, and then there's 28 independent living homes on the exterior.
Now, on your villas and your cottages and your homes, what would they start out, say if I wanted to come in and buy one, what would I be looking at?
These are rental units.
They're all rentals, so
All rentals.
none of them would be for sale, correct?
Correct. Correct.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hinkie.
Yeah, good evening.
Sir?
It's good to see you again. Couple questions that are perhaps you could give just a brief overview. This property, we've had a couple of different developments that were going into this property that didn't work out, let's put it that way. And there were some concerns about the financing of this of the development, and there was concerns about the clientele there. Perhaps you could just enlighten up all of us a little bit on the range of services provided from the independent living down to the, help me with the words I'm looking for.
Sure, I'm down to the assisted living.
Right, exactly.
Let's start on the outside ring, the independent living. You could rent, let's pick on, I don't know what the numbering system will be, but we'll call it the far left unit 12A. You could move into 12A, you and your wife, you and your sister, whatever it be, and not have any services whatsoever, not have any call upon what I'll call that little community building or little headquarters pocket. You're just paying rent for that unit, the garage, the whole bit. Or you could take and go through a little bit of an a la carte, and I don't claim to be real good at an operator, developer and a general contractor, but I don't know too much about medicine and bedpans, we'll put it that way. However, in multiple meetings, and I'd sent a couple of you a list of websites to show other operations. It would be a la carte where folks could ask for some light housekeeping. They could ask for a little bit of assistance because maybe mom isn't quite ready to take and move to the inner ring. She doesn't really quite have it, but she's getting close. So you're concerned about the medicine. So somebody to take a check in on her to make sure that the medicine's being taken appropriately. Some people may have a little bit of disability and need some help, whether it be with bathing, hygiene, et cetera, that type of thing. So there's kind of a range of services where they can come in and a la carte that. So it's anything from an apartment to an apartment with amenities that you choose. On the interior, it's classified under the state of Missouri as ALF2 or Assisted Living Facility, Roman numeral 2. At that, there's a requirement on what the density or the worker to client ratio, like that. These will be less than that. I believe the number is something like 15 to 1. This will be closer to 6 to 1.
6 residents to a caregiver.
Roughly, like that. There's the way the rules read, they don't expect 2 or 3 caregivers to be sitting there in the middle of the night.
Right.
But, so it does vary, so I don't want to misconstrue that. But during the bulk of the day, there will generally be 2 people there, so you have 10 there, and then up at the headquarters facility there, or the little community building, there'll be that 11th person that can kind of float, like that. If you have special needs, or there seems to be a little bit more demand going on within Cottage 3, like that. So the villas are on the outside, the cottages are on the inside, hence the name, like that. Those services are a little bit more, you're dealing with, some will be memory care, some will be assisted living where it has all those things we spoke of earlier, including the medicine, the hygiene, the issues with any disabilities, et cetera. And just general, try and provide an environment, as we all know, that environment. That greenhouse concept seems to have worked. It's been better for the health, for the stability, and it seems to, I'll call it flatline, but again, I'm not a doctor. It seems to help the overall health of the resident when they have that type of caregiving facility in a building that isn't, let's call it a large nursing home where you can get lost unless you're in a lockdown section. And that's kind of the intent of these.
Okay, and on the payment, the resident's payment, is any of this subsidized? Is this going to be insurance? Is this going to be?
Private pay, I do know that there are situations, let's go back to, say, some of the independent living. Under some circumstances, you can draw upon your insurance for things like what I call the visiting angels or some of that support type of thing. That's where you really get in. Even people that do it for a living aren't real good at that, how you apply for it. So I'm not even going to try and go outside my pay grade in terms of discussing that. But it's going to be considered private pay. There will probably be just a touch of insurance here and there, but the goal is to just stay away from that. It's private pay.
Okay.
Move in, pay your bill, let's move on. How can we help mom or dad become more comfortable? In a couple of cases, a couple of the facilities are set up where mom and dad can both move in if they don't want to be split. I had an aunt and uncle that they didn't allow them to stay in the same unit, but they moved into a facility where she was in one wing and he was in another, and that allowed them to just really spend most of their time during the day together like that.
I know when I talked to you before, we had discussed most of this already once. Okay?
That's okay, but it's been a few months.
Right,
I respect
it
that.
has been, but and my only concern, one of my concerns, I'm a little gun shy on this piece of property, what's taken place in the past. You're a representative of the construction, of the contractor for this.
We have a development consulting contract to help Mr. and Mrs. Rogers and Mr. Axon through this process.
Okay.
And try and help them with the engineer, with the architect.
Sir,
et
can you
cetera.
speak in the microphone,
Oh,
please?
excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the only thing, my point there completely was having a contractor explain the business model in this. You know what I'm saying? You're wearing a couple different hats here.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
The reason that Paul and Laurie, who live in Sacramento, they grew up here in Hazelwood, had asked that we get involved is, one, there's a little bit of a relationship there that goes back. He was a couple years younger than me in high school. I have developed and owned and operated a lot of apartments in my life like that, and understand the business model of putting these pro formas together and sitting down with a lender and walking through all the vagaries of that. And I've personally developed about 2,000 units. The two co-founders of Double Diamond and myself combined have developed about 4,500 units completely. and then we've been the general contractor providing either paid or unpaid development services to perhaps another 2,000 units. So they're kind of calling upon that development experience more than they are the general contracting experience. Until we break ground, hopefully, I keep saying April 1 just to get, if you don't give a date, people just don't hit it. But the goal would be, as we get through the winter right into the
My
spring.
question on that obviously became from, you are giving this council a representative view of what this is gonna be. And we're holding you to your word. We're also holding them to your word. That what your representation of this development will in fact be what it is, so.
I purposely, from a visual or aesthetics, within that package that I'd sent, we took 3 representative photos because it's harder for people to understand the cottage concept than it is for independent living. So we took some pictures, and those pictures represent the cottages of Lake St. Louis throughout off of Technology Drive. It's under this greenhouse model with a little bit of exception to the way that the interiors have been designed. And I think that Klaus, who's going to be more of the day-to-day operator, Paul's more the developer type, Klaus is more the operator, Mr. Axon. He's been doing this now for 12, 13 years, like that. And I provided, I believe, the 2 of you this morning, again, those websites to turn in, and there was a number of communities they've operated. They're the ones that have put me on the straight and narrow about what we're doing, what they're doing, and what we are as a group are trying to accomplish, like that. So those facilities represent the aesthetic from a fit and finish on the inside and outside. Paul says I want it to look this good, if not better. And then from an operational point of view, I've been out there a couple of times to try and get a better handle. So while I'm not perfect, and I don't claim to be, if you don't operate, you don't get it. But having managed a lot of facilities from upper scale Class A office buildings down to pretty rough multifamily, I get a pretty good sense of what you're going to need in terms of staffing, how to upkeep the interior and the exterior. When I look at a budget, I have a pretty good handle on have they thought about their operating expenses going forward. So part of my role with our company is to think of it as an asset manager so that when we're building it and we're telling our clientele, perhaps you ought to try this flooring instead of this flooring, or you really don't want to go that cheap on this product, whether it be plumbing fixture or lighting fixture, whatever. We've all seen where you can be so cheap that then 2 years later you're replacing. And so part of my role in that is to say, excuse me, at one point I was so heavily involved in multifamily that I served a couple terms as president of the St. Louis Apartment Association. So I was very active in that role. So that's what they're asking for from us is more of the development and operating experience from the physical plant and from a day-to-day ordinance dealing with the Phil Lums of the world, et cetera, to get them to the stage that they can then operate.
Well, and what I'm looking at, this piece of property is unique where it is because one side of the property, actually it's almost a part of that, is a 510-unit apartment complex.
Yes.
The other side of this property is completely residential neighborhoods.
Yes.
So you've got a mix here that we want to be very careful that we get the right use because
why we lower the profile.
The people in the apartment complex, I'm not going to say that they're not going to notice, of course they will, but it has a much bigger impact on the residential neighborhood that borders it to me than it does the apartment complex neighbors.
We respect that. Our issue was when we went into it is while there's a couple cases that on the exterior they could have gone with the 3-story, we kind of talked about if you can take and lower the profile. It's a little softer as we try and make headway into the balance. And while you do have Paddock Creek and Coldwater Creek, providing that extra depth of barrier that you normally wouldn't have. If this property, we go out to the center of those and you'd expand it out a little bit, we'd be creeping up closer to those homes. Well, the way it's set up, that natural barrier of Paddock and Coldwater actually benefits that softening. So you lower the profile, it's softer just because of that natural barrier on really not quite 2/3 plus of the circumference of the property or perimeter of the property.
Well, listen, thank you, and wish you the best of luck. I hope it comes out as envisioned. Let's just put it that way.
I do too. I'm looking excited being part of this when it comes vertical.
Thank you, Ms. Hinkie. Mr. Siam.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Mr. Henke had some of the same questions I did, so I appreciate that part of it. You said you also had some other locations of these already open. Are there any here in the St. Louis area by any chance?
No, there's not. Innovative Senior Living, who is like the management company, they have and I'm going to probably do this wrong. So they have a few facilities in Tucson, a couple in Tallahassee, and I believe they're breaking ground, or have broken ground in Colorado Springs or a suburb thereof, like that. In some cases, these have been operating for about 12 years. I took Klaus's email from August 14th and resent that to you two, so you could kind of read through where one community was like 9, 10 unit buildings, another one was 10, 12 unit buildings, and they've been operating at 100% for 3 years and 5 years and 6 years at a whack. And I think that's pretty telling in both their management experience and their understanding, both the operations on the costing side, which is, as the small businessman will know, will hurt you as bad as sometimes the revenue line, but also understanding the price points on the revenue line. So as I've gotten to know Klaus, and Klaus has been by the site a couple of times, he's been to St. Louis a couple of times, they've done a very good market study of what their competitors are, and part of the interior will actually require a certificate of need, and that market study has been drafted, it's being reviewed, and it's going to then be packaged up for a visit to Jeff City. In Jefferson City, they won't move forward unless you have they won't give you a CON unless you have your zoning, and unless you have your commitment letter from a lender, like that. A few other things, but those two key ones that are important to what Mr. Henke's been asking, like that. So it's a timing thing where everything comes together, you sit down, they bless you that day, and hopefully 60 days later you can break ground.
You've given us plenty of homework.
Okay, sounds good. And there were a lot of details in the plans, like you said, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss a couple of things. Do you have a plan for lighting the streets around there at night?
I'll say somewhat. It is one of those that the plan became fairly crowded, like that. So the discussion is how much lighting are we going to take and put on the buildings coming out, and how much will we put is what you call street lighting. On private, it's not perhaps the same setup as you do with the subdivision, where you have a light standard on this side and X number of houses down the street, another one here, and that. We've looked at it with the wall packs, shining out and trying to keep it a softer going into the windows of the residents, as opposed to having the street light outside each one. It's a little bit crowded out there also.
Okay.
So right now we're leaning towards wall packs. But what I've always done is when the place is about built, you drive out there and you look and go, okay, where are my dark spots? What can I add? Like that. And I've done that for years from a safety point of view.
I think that is good for the safety of the residents there to do that.
And this will be gated also. It's hard to take and reflect that on there. It'll be a gated community. There will not be a fence that'll be 100% surrounding the community, but it'll be gated, trying to provide a semblance of control over the access. It's a private street. We've worked with the fire department. I believe that there are exchange of emails in the package that was provided, which reflected that we sat down with the fire marshal and discussed what his needs were, his expectations, his response back to that. There's really only one thing he hasn't responded to, and it's really kind of immaterial to that. I'm just trying to cut out some phone lines on the flow switches that come out. So those of you who do construction, I'm just trying to do where they're tied together in the 5 buildings, as opposed to having 2 phone lines for each of those buildings, like that. He said that he would research it and get back to me. And that's the closest to any type of conflict we have. And to me, that's not a conflict. That's just him trying to do his job.
Okay, sure. And the parking scheme, does it work like one parking space for every unit? That's kind of what it appeared to be, but I wasn't sure if that's what was intended or not.
It's hard to see on this.
Yeah.
As it is if you open up, even like I believe the green, the color one. What we've done is that the parking required is, I'm doing this top of my head, I believe is 68. We've provided 69. There's garages, and then the driveway in front of the garages for most of the surrounding exterior. We've put a couple of parking spots for visitors coming into the, if you want to go to building 3, you kind of park at these little, that are just kind of notched out, where you park there and you come through the gate and come into building 3, like that. And in fact, our discussion with the Planning and Zoning Board is to force the employees to all park up on that ring that's on the far end of the community, opposite of the gate, like that. And that way, because you're going to have staff parking, remove that, and then you're going to have some visitors to see mom or dad or grandma or whomever it be. you know, Uncle Pete, you know, whoever it is that's within one of those facilities. And then you're going to have somebody who's going to have a Sunday gig, and that was raised by the planning and zoning. And what about Thanksgiving, you know, at one of the independent villas, et cetera. And you'll see that part of our notes and our exchange of information with the fire marshal ask about parking on the street, making the street one way, and parking on one side of the street. And it would be the inside, not the outside, because the outside's kind of broken up with all the little driveways that you know, ingress, egress off of that. So that's the plan there, and the fire marshal said as long as you folks in planning and zoning were acceptable, that was amenable to him. And he actually preferred that it goes counterclockwise, and that's the way it's set up.
Okay, sounds good. And finally, at least for now, did I hear you say you were hoping to have this the construction completed by April 1st or something?
No,
like
hoping
that?
to break ground. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
If I could do that.
I was going to say it seemed a little ambitious, but
It did. That'd be really ambitious. And if I could pull that off, I would be contractor of the year and I'd be set for life.
okay, that sounds good. So what is this time frame that you're looking at for, like, generally speaking?
I actually see this because of the oversight, and we briefly spoke of this, that the center, because it's going to be monitored on a quarterly basis, the financials and the operations and the inspections, et cetera, because it is a facility, I hate to use the word nursing facility, but effectively that's what it is. It is monitored. So what we're looking at is having a split deal where it may be a simultaneous closing, but you're going to close and there'll be slightly different ownership for the inside and the outside, just because those financials will be the ones that will be sent to Jeff City on a quarterly basis. There'll be visiting inspectors that'll come through there more often than you would get on the independent living. That will probably close first, or they'll close simultaneous. We've been telling everybody that right now it's actually starting to improve a little bit, but when we first started talking about this, we were worried about the construction labor. Those of you that are in construction know that if you need 8 guys out on a job site for that trade, you get 5 or 6, and you're begging for that 7th or 8th. You know, when you get 6, you're actually happy, but you want 8. We see that lightening up just a little bit, so it may improve this. But we're going to tell the lender it's going to take 16 months. We think it's going to take 14. The goal is to under promise and over deliver, like that. And I've said this out loud and during the planning and zoning also. So my only concern is if they did have a slightly delayed start between what I'll call phase 1 and phase 2, we had told the Planning and Zoning Commission that we thought that the whole thing would be done in no less than 2 years, but probably really less than a year and a half. But I would hate for us to have said a year and a half and we need that extra 3 weeks, and it's like, okay, what do you do for a penalty? You know, you're 97% done, you were back ordered on a door or whatever it be. You know, what's the penalty? So we've said that we'll get it done in 2 years, but we think it'll actually be more like a 14-month window. Tell the lender 16 months, make them feel good.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Ms. Cyan. Mr. Jones?
What size investment is this going to be?
The entire site will probably be in the neighborhood of short 15,
Okay.
about 15.
Are we going to have management on site all the time? Is there going to be an office there?
Yes, that's Building 8 when you first come in, even though unfortunately you got to drive away from it. Building 8 that's just to the left when you come through one of the 2 gates, like that. That is a community building. It's about 1,800 square feet. It will have an office that will run what you and I would consider the medical intake. That's where they would store the records from a HIPAA point of view, et cetera. That's where the nurse that will always be on site will be. And then there will also be what you would consider more the property management side. We'll also have an office there. And yes, it will be manned at least 5 days a week from, you know, because 28 units doesn't really need that much property management. It doesn't need 7 day a week like Kensington next door.
Sure.
It has to, like that.
What
But
about
the other, so the cottages will have 7 day a week.
What about the maintenance staff? Will they do that? I mean, will there be a crew there? Or
Yes, yes, sir.
just coming to
Yes,
visit?
sir.
once in a
You know,
while?
some things will be jobbed out. I've always found it's so much easier to pay a landscaper to, you know, cut the grass
Sure.
and some of that other, you know, that's a lot of equipment to store. They did ask for purposes of anything from holiday decorations, we'll use that polite term, to, you know, some maintenance equipment, et cetera. That's why we have a decent-sized maintenance facility, kind of hidden back behind the dumpster and back in the corner there,
I see.
near Coldwater Creek.
What about the lagoon on site? Will that be fenced off?
No, the lagoon's actually going to be a water feature, for lack of a better phrase. It'll be a retention pond,
Okay.
like that. What we have done is worked with MSD, and as we conveyed to Phil, because Phil did quiz us pretty good on the infrastructure there. He wanted to know what MSD was allowing. For those of you who have any awareness of the facility that was going to go in, not facility, but the development that was going to go in and have the townhomes, that did not include the little piece that is what I'll call kind of across the street from the apartments. Okay, and that's the one that has the address of 1415, to my understanding. That is not included in the MSD plan. So we sat and visited with MSD, and we had the engineer who took an extra day with family out in California, or Ken Clayton would be with me, but had the original engineer that designed that, and that infrastructure is there, and we did provide in your package the as-built of what is underground. You know, we just have to test a few things, but the majority of that site, what was going to be, which would be if you come in, let's just say the circle all the way back through that lagoon, detention pond, retention pond, we have to take and pull dirt out of the center of that because I believe the Goldenbergs had began to fill that in. Put it back in the condition that it was originally proposed, and MSD considers it the way, they're going to allow it to stand as submitted back in 2006. They consider it fine the way it is, just basically fix what's there. Then we have to do the infamous, we've all heard that phrase, water quality, and that is to take what it would be Building 8, which is a community building, Building 9, and Building 10, which is tucked back in the corner. And anything that comes off those buildings from a stormwater point of view, the water has to be, you know, water quality, of which we're going to do mostly through trees. MSD does allow that now. We've been working with them. They were actually pretty excited about that concept. So you'll have more, you know, of the willow type tree, et cetera.
You brought up about fencing for some of the seniors that might have medical problems.
It's the center.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea
If
is.
somebody was to get out of that fenced-in area, you know, I mean, that would be a hell of a tumble to take back in that retention pond. And that's what why I brought that up.
I respect that. No, the electronic, between the banding and the electronics of first getting out through the front door of Cottage 2 and then getting through a gate, because those gates will also be electronic.
Okay.
We picked out, that's one of the things we did do with the fire marshal is walk through the gating system and how that would work.
Now, what about utilities on the rentals? Gas, water, or is that all wrapped into one?
It'll be individual utilities like that. It'd just be like an apartment. It just happens to be a villa.
Okay,
like
so you guys do not take care of the utilities and then bill them in the rent. That is not one payment, correct?
Correct.
Just like a regular apartment. I have
Correct.
to go get the electric in my name, the phone in my name.
Yes, yes, sir.
That's it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mr. Egan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Mr. Lee. Good to see you. I just have a couple quick questions, a lot of good questions from council. My first question is, in the event that do you have rules in event that a independent living person would want to have a guest? I know, is there time periods that they could have a guest live there that you have demarked in their lease?
They have not gotten to that level of detail. I would suspect that Paul's going to ask me a few questions. My rule of thumb in managing apartments, at one point I had about 3,000 apartments in 4 states. At another time I had about 2,500 of them here just in the St. Louis area. And you understand that you're going to have the visit,
Sure.
the grandma visit,
Sure.
Dad, whatever it be. So we've always said that 2 weeks kind of accumulated. you know, grandma comes for a week in spring break and comes for a week at Christmas or whatever it be. That's kind of unfair to pick on grandma, but I think we understand the concept. When somebody starts getting mail there, their shoes are under the bed, they've got jerseys hanging in the closets, I go back to the days where I'm used to writing really strict rules, I'll just put it that way, about what was and was not allowed. The positive thing is that when you have seniors, you don't generally have those type of issues as you do when you have family communities. I could tell you stories about family communities, but we'd have to turn the camera off like that. But with the elderly, you do have a lot better control. There's a lot better understanding of issues.
Thank you. If you could express those concerns to Paul as well, I'd appreciate it. Because what we don't want is a situation where grandma and grandpa go to place and then 8 family members come and visit for a year.
That I totally understand.
Okay, thank you. That's my first question. My second question, if you could also express to Mr. Rogers, the community building might be, since it's going to be operated around the clock, that community building might be a good location for a police substation. If there's a nook or a cranny they could find in there. I'm sure if it got with Chief Lowry, he'd love to have a police substation there.
I actually think it's a great idea.
I know that myself and Chief Lowry actually met with Paul, and I don't think you believe it there that day, maybe late April last year or late winter last year, about when he got a group of people who went out and listened to him, and it's a very exciting project, and I hope it comes to fruition.
Is that where it was a cold morning?
It was colder than hell.
Okay, I was there.
Okay.
There was about 30 people there.
And the last thing I would say is you mentioned that you were a graduate of Hazelwood West. I graduated from there. You must have gone there many, many years before me. Is that true? Thank you. Let's move on.
Thank you, Ms. Deegan. Ms. Pagano.
Yes, I have a couple questions, but thank you, Mr. Egan, on that. And as he said about people moving in, and I'm just saying, you're saying 55 and older, correct?
Yes.
On the independent living or all the living?
It would be all. There are some legal rules when it comes to the medical side, and I'm going to admit that I'm not strong enough to take and walk across those, because you just have to acknowledge that if somebody does have really early dementia, is it really the age that you're trying to fight? You know, like that. So I believe that there is exceptions to the rule, so we'll leave it at that. But 55 and older?
Okay, so I know Mr. Egan meets this age group for 55 and older, so.
This is a tough crowd.
It is. I'm just a tad bit younger. But I'm just saying, so if, say, Mr. Egan had one and his son Johnny gets a divorce and needs to come back home and has 2 children, who's going to monitor that?
Well, it goes back to who is on the lease, how Paul's going to do it and how I would do it. Maybe 2 different things, but I am going to make suggestions to him. And we're pretty good. Some things that we used to do, because I had a lot more family. So it's a thought process. You go into it so you avoid those type of issues. First of all, you go in there and you have some responsibilities over like the HVAC equipment. So if I move somebody in over 2 years, if they never make a phone call for maintenance, I should be inside that unit a minimum of 5 times. The day I moved them in and walked around and said, here's what it looks like, sign off here. And then call it March and October to take and do the HVAC check. You pull in filters, you making sure that the HVAC, the AC side works. You're checking the heating side and walking through that. And then we also used to take a test, and in the old days when it was pulling the batteries, we'd pull the batteries twice a year, and then we just donate those to like a Goodwill or some other not-for-profit because they still had life left in them. So that got us into the unit, 5 times a year. Plus maintenance staff, if you can keep your turnover low, maintenance staff see a lot more than you realize. They see who goes in and out of a unit. They know what's going on, like that. And so you teach them what the issue is. And if they go in to repair a faucet and let's go back to family, but again, it goes back to thought process. If you have, a 27-year-old girl with a 7-year-old boy that lives there, and he goes in there in the bathroom and there's all sorts of shaving equipment, and there's, size 13 tennis shoes, and there's some jerseys that would fit, 3 of us here, you kind of understand that maybe somebody's starting to get a little comfortable. You also try and work with the mailman to the extent that they will tell you things. Most of them won't, but if they do, that's great. I don't foresee that on an elderly facility, and I've had elderly, and I still own parts of some elderly facilities, and that's not our issue. Every once in a while, you do have the grandson that has to get away from mom and dad because it's a tense situation and comes to visit for a few days. Well, you know something? That's actually probably kind of grounding for both grandma and for the kid, like that. But if the kid starts getting real comfortable there, and he's there longer than that infamous 2 weeks we're speaking of, then you have to say something to the resident. So it's one of those that I almost have to have it happen before I could give you an exact, here's what I would do. But believe me, I feel your pain and I understand your concern.
Right. What did you say the cost, did you give a cost of these? I know that. I think you
It will be
asked
measurably less if you were to take and go. Well, I'm uncomfortable quoting numbers because these guys have gone up and down by $300, $400, $500. But it would be for the memory care. It's going to be, somebody can't make it on like a voucher, which is one of the reasons I specifically stated there will not be subsidized housing.
It's not low-income housing.
No, absolutely. There are no tax credits involved. And just for the record, I have built tax credit housing, so I understand what that entails like that. This is not tax credit. It is not subsidized. This is all private pay.
And if these could not be rented out, if you have a struggle getting them, would they apply to get vouchers to go for
At this price point, if they had to take and go for vouchers, frankly, the bank would take it back because the pro forma wouldn't work. I don't know a clean way of saying it. Even at the highest voucher amount for a 2 or 3 bedroom villa, there's absolutely no way that would pay the freight of what they're asking here. And the bank would notice that the income level is really low and would end up taking it back. Just have to put it that way.
Okay. Is there any place in St. Louis that this is comparable to?
Yes.
I could do.
There's a couple places that are relatively comparable. The one that's the closest is that Cottages Lake St. Louis off of Technology Drive. There is another one that is, I'm going to say close. It's trying to do the same concept. I don't believe that they had quite the background that Mr. Axon did in operating, and they didn't ask as many questions up front. But there's a place out in Cottleville called the Gables that's close like that. It's the same concept. I just don't know if it's executed as well. That's probably the best way I can refer to that. I know there's a couple others. I don't know exactly where each of these communities are located, but in conversations on our conference calls, they've brought up this. It's relatively new. Paul would like to put 3 of them here in the St. Louis area, have a little bit of synergy and a little bit of economy of scale, and move on. Again, his co-developer in this, co-partner, has, I can't tell you, he must have 400-something beds operating like that, successfully like that. And I didn't know Klaus from Adam, and I was not skeptical, but kind of wondered, who is this guy? But after meeting him and doing a little bit of due diligence ourselves, because if we're going to stick our head out there and build this thing, I want to know for whom I'm building like that. The guy seems to have a clue, if you can pardon that phrase.
And I was not privy to, and I don't know if the rest of the council was privy to the emails you seem to have sent to Mr. Siam and Mr. Henke, but is there any way the council can be included?
Is it appropriate for me to send it to all 9? Great.
See it.
Okay.
I mean,
Look for that tonight.
If you want to send it to me, I can send it out to them.
and
Okay.
it's a good one, because I would like to see
When I
that
sit down, I'm gonna
before
send
I
it to
make-
her.
Because I may have more questions when I read all that.
Sure. When I sit down, I'll send that to you.
Okay. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Mr. Pagano. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Lee, good evening. A question about transportation. Do you know if the Innovative Senior Living Group, or for the facilities that they have, are they in the habit of providing transportation to the seniors so they can get to things in the community like the groceries and the worship and the recreation, to be involved in the community? Is that something that you?
That conversation came up with the ODS program and others that we have in the St. Louis area, combined with what they've done in other communities. And he has communities that are like 3 miles apart, and he says part of his need for like having a van and shuttling them around is also who becomes the occupant. And you can plan your occupancy and think you're going to know what the ambulatory, I don't know a better phrase than that, but just how active your community is, and you might turn out where you end up with a little bit older facility. I know 2 senior facilities that I've developed and own where The one senior facility, there's 48 units at both of them. Excuse me, there's 52 at one, there's 48 at the other. The 48-plex, nobody wants to go anywhere. And there must be the little scooters, and granted, it's a mid-rise, but it's still the same concept. There must be 12 or 13 scooters out of 48 units, which is very surprising. Whereas the 52-plex, that group, they're never there. They're coming and going all the time. They're active seniors. And it's 52 of them, and I think there's 2 scooters in the entire 52-unit complex. So you don't know exactly who you're going to get. So yes, do they have the desire to provide transportation, but it's how much is needed. If I'm gonna have a van that just sits there and just sits there and just sits there and nobody uses it, okay, that's kind of a waste of money and depreciation a whole bit. Could we put it into some other type of service, or could we not have an increase in the rent, come next year, or not as large an increase? And that's kind of the concept. So it's a possible / probable, but we really need to see what the base is, what the client base.
Now, are you familiar with John Knox Village in Kansas City?
No.
Okay, because I think it's similar to that, and knew somebody that was there, and that was a nice facility. So it seems like doing a little research here on the greenhouse project, or it's a pretty good idea. So.
It's pretty neat. When they first brought it to me, I was, I had to do my research to better understand what are they trying to build, what are they trying to develop, what are they trying to get zoned, et cetera. It's a pretty neat concept.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Yes, I have one more question. What is your other requirements to rent other than being 55 and older?
It would be your standard, I guess, economic, to put somebody.
Credit checks, record checks, I mean.
Yes. There's like LexisNexis, for example, you have a number of them that do crime and credit checks at the same time. In the olden days, you could only check 1 or 2 counties. Now they have systems out there where you put the name in, and for a relatively small amount of money, they'll tell you if they've been arrested in West Virginia or Montana or whatever it be, and what for, like that. Because I used to use that as some of the criteria in allowing people in or denying people like that. So you do a crime and credit check, they need to be able to pay the freight, you need to find out that you're not putting, shall we say, a violent felon or something of that effect in there. The formal rules have not been written. That's something that I did tell Klaus, that every state has their own statute and the things that they do and don't allow, and that between myself and a couple others, we could probably give them a little guidance on a set of rules that you have attached to your lease that you sign.
Yeah, because I know the city, we have a crime-free program. I don't know if you've been aware of that, very successful program, and I know it's for landlords, rental property, and with the apartments, so, okay.
The police are your new best friends. Mm-hmm. I always tell the police department that I'd like them to help choose their neighbor, choose their citizen, excuse me. You ask residents to help choose their neighbor, and you ask the police department to help choose their citizen.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Before we close this public hearing, is anyone in the audience that'd like to speak on this?
Robert Smith, 2823 Chapel View Drive. I know that Jackie had asked this question, and the gentleman didn't answer, but does he have any idea of what this rent is going to cost? I mean, the low to high end. Okay. That's all. That's the only question I have.
Thank you, Robert.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for this opportunity. Mark Bellman, 740 Lindsay Lane. Stood here 11 years ago talking about this. And here I am yet again tonight. I've received over a dozen phone calls from neighbors off of Carla and that entire area west of the development, and so I have to make a public statement. I'm very much in favor of this project. It is not, and I have to repeat, not vouchers, not subsidized, will be built union, and we'll have to follow, of course, the crime-free rules that have been set up.
and the agent will oversee all of that and follow those rules without any problem. Rents are not set yet. We'll have to feel through the market and how things are going to go. So I do support this, very much part of the team. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Spellman.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Noonan. My address is 1840 Deborah Lynn Lane, Florissant, and my husband and I own the property that would be directly adjacent to the Smart Senior Living. Our property would be behind buildings 11 and 12, sort of to the northwest. In fact, our house would sit right there by it. We are a little concerned about maintaining our privacy. The back of these buildings would face our front yard and our home. And right now we have a 6-foot privacy fence around our backyard. We have a swimming pool back there. Mr. Rogers had spoken with us a couple of times, and he said that he would work with us as far as what kind of fence went between our property and these buildings. There's a concrete retaining wall there now. We would like to see, rather than the wrought iron fence where our privacy is lost, we would prefer to have a 6-foot privacy fence down that retaining wall between us and those properties. We're also a little concerned about whether or not there is room for all of this development on this property, plus parking. I read on here 69 parking places. I don't know where that's going to go. We're also a little concerned about the lighting that you ask about, because that's going to shine right into our home, right into our bedroom, right into our front room and everything. We're also concerned about the rental units that would be facing our property, well, their backyards would be facing our front of our property, and if there would be a limit to the occupancy, you know, whether or not there can be 10 people living there or 2 people, like you were talking about just a few minutes ago. So we just wanted to share with you some of our concerns, because the independent living would be right there in our front yard facing our house. If anyone were to get, anyone who had Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever were to get onto our property runs the length of the creek almost all the way down to St. Ferdinand Park. We have 6 acres. There is a huge drop-off into that creek just on the other side of our tree line. So that would also be a safety concern. So we would really like to see the fence be a privacy fence between us and those buildings, 11 and 12.
Ma'am, what did you say your address was?
1840 Deborah Lynn Lane. We're the only ones on the street. It's the street that comes, it's basically our driveway, comes right up to our house. And then our house, the back of our house is facing Carla, and the houses that are on Carla are in our backyard, kind of. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Regarding the fence and the separation, I do know that Mr. Rogers had spoken with them and said that the area where there isn't a fence, that we would include a little bit more of a landscaping buffer. And while we drew that out, that plan again, it's 9.5 acres, we've promised additional trees and additional shrubs over and above what your requirements are. So we would have the ability to take and place those a little bit better back along there. While we're not opposed to a fence per se, when we were talking to P&Z, there seems to be a little bit of and I do not want to put words in their mouth, but I had more than one individual nod their head when we talked about trying to keep it a little bit more park-like and as much greenery as we could, as opposed to trying and fence the thing off. So again, while we're not opposed to it, I don't foresee an issue with that whatsoever. And regarding the lighting, on the rear of it, that's going to be just porch lights. There won't be anything that would wash into the neighbor's yard. And I do believe that there's enough differential back there between them. And originally it was going to be a couple of three-story buildings back there, that just the ambient light coming off of, even out of the third story, would have been a little bit more than what we are proposing with a lower profile and just the porch lights off the back of those, let's call it 8 units, 10 units, excuse me, like that. I hope that provides a little bit more comfort level for our neighbor. But we'd be glad to work with them, and if for some reason there is a little bit of light, sticking another couple trees in when you're doing a development like that, that's kind of a non-issue. Intend on being there a while, so we want to be a good neighbor. So during the construction phase, during the landscaping phase, we'd be happy to take and participate with our neighbor in making sure that their needs are met and their comfort level is there.
See no more comments? Councilman Cyan moves to close this public hearing, second by Mr. Hinkie. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Public hearing is closed. Next item on the agenda is public hearing number 1811035.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with Section 405-135 of the Florissant City Code, the zoning ordinance as amended, that a public hearing will be held by the City Council in the City of Florissant, St. Louis County, Missouri, in the council chambers of 955 Rue St. Francois on Monday, November 26, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. on the following proposition. To issue an amendment to B5 ordinance number 6836 as amended to allow for additions to the Siteman Cancer Center located at 1225 Graham Road. Citizens and parties of interest will have an opportunity to be heard at said public hearing. Anyone with special needs should contact the city clerk at least 5 days before said public hearing by calling 839-7630 or TDD 839-5142.
Sir?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name's Greg Moeller. I'm Vice President for BJC Healthcare. They're a construction and real estate group. There's two comments I want to make before I turn it over to Mr. Stock for specifics on a request to amend the current ordinance. Number one, I apologize for not being here at the last meeting, and I know the owner's team in the field got ahead of the approval process on the radiation oncology expansion that was supposed to occur a couple years down the road. That actually occurred. We got started on construction too early. So I apologize for that. That's my responsibility. I represent the team in the field as the owner, and our practice is never, ever to circumvent any approval process of the city of Florissant or the other municipalities we do business in, so I do apologize for that. The second thing I want to mention is we have established and you may have seen it on the campus within the construction zone, a career resource center that's on the northern end of the fenced-in property. It's a trailer that is filled with really kiosks and video screens, and it was established to draw attention to the area of construction as a resource for really looking at high school students and also in the healthcare industry. And we have opened it up on a weekly basis. 1 day a week we reserve it for any high schools that want to tour through there, which there's been quite a few trying to attract students into the construction field or the healthcare field. And it's been received very positively by the local high schools and the community. So we appreciate, and just wanted to mention that if you've seen it, if you would like to do a tour through there, let me know and we can set that up. But we recently were acknowledged through the construction forum as St. Louis Publication gave us an award recently because of the outreach there to the construction. As we've already heard here tonight, the construction field is not growing with workers, and we're definitely in the business to try to grow that workforce. So, any questions on any one of those two before I turn over to Mr. Stock?
Is that sponsored through BJC, the AGC, Building Trades?
So it was a joint venture with BJC Healthcare and Tarleton Construction.
Oh, okay.
It was an idea. Yeah.
General's involved more too with it instead of
Yes.
the AGC then?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Charlton's a good company.
It was part of our budget to try to attract. We're always looking ways to increase the workforce. I mean, we require diversity on our workforce on the MBE, side, and we're just trying to attract more workers to the field of construction.
Good, good.
Any other questions before I turn it over to Mr. Stock? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Fisher, in place of George Stock. We're here tonight to ask for approval of expansion to the original Siteman Cancer Center. It's situated in the back of the building. It's about 1,586 square feet, approximately footprint. It's placed about right there. As Mr. Moeller had mentioned, yes, construction has already started on that. And that's, again, construction jumped the gun. They did not make us aware of the construction while we were in the process, so we were at planning and zoning, and we actually found out that they were in construction with that. The type of construction is going to match the existing building, brick. In your packet, you have building elevations of the full building, not just the expansion. And you can see it blends straight into the building. No conflicts, no eyesores or anything like that, because it's all, again, going to be constructed at one time. Landscaping-wise, the landscaper had taken all of the landscaping that was back there and just kind of shoved it out of the footprint. So there were no changes, a numbering of plants or anything like that. The bioretention did grow a little bit to help with the water quality of that expansion. And I'm here to take any questions.
Mr. Jones.
Are we on schedule so far? As far as the construction, I've been up on the site many times now. I mean, I see they're plowing ahead. I cannot tell the difference from what you guys are coming up to tell us about until we got the prints. But are you guys on schedule now as far as construction?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we got a good start in the summer, get out of the ground, and we're moving ahead. We got set back a little bit in the last week and a half because of the early cold.
Sure.
Cold and wet. The ground is wet. It's bare, so.
Sure. And I appreciate you guys pushing for our apprenticeship programs too.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Nope, that's the only question I got. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Shuldroff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Fisher, April. Fall of 19 still looking pretty good?
I believe that's the move. Yes.
Okay. The other thing was you said it's the construction's brick back there, what we're doing, everything's still a match, right?
Yes.
Okay. One minor thing, now that you're all here, I saw a couple times contractor cleaning the entrance there. You know, I know it gets dirty, I understand that. Could you look at that again? I know you've been pretty good about it, and I know it's hard with what's going on and the weather also, so could you take a look at that for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I appreciate it, sir.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shuldroff. Okay, seeing no. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this public hearing before we close? Seeing none. Councilman Shuldroff moves to close this public hearing, second by myself. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item is bills for a second reading. Okay, I would like to make an amendment to Bill 9441 to add full-time duplicating operator, an assistant specialist, and remove part-time duplicating an operator to the 2019 budget, which is $29,387. Second by Mr. Hinkie. Discussion. All in favor?
Wait a minute.
Aye. All opposed? Nope. Ayes have it.
Do you let her, okay.
Okay. Councilman Hickey moves for a second reading, second by myself. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance adopting the budget for the city of Florissant for the fiscal year commencing December 1st, 2018, and ending on November 30th, 2019, and providing for its effective date.
Councilman Egan moves for a third reading, second by Councilwoman Pagano.
Some things you need to make motions on. Those two memos that came through from Kimberly. One of them is the 5,000 adjustment, and the other one was the public works adjustment. We got two memos, so we got two amendments that need to be made. These are the two memos. This is the first one, that was for the safety. Yeah, so it needs to be an amendment to the budget. You get
Okay, also I make an amendment to the budget to include the safety program expenses of $500. Second by Mr. Egan. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
$5,000.
Yes. No, 5,000, Mr. Council. Did I?
Yes.
Oh, I meant 5,000. I correct myself.
Okay.
5,000.
Here's the second one. This one is the second one. This is the street fund correction.
Also another amendment to the budget. The street fund, street contract corrections, $200,000 to street contract account 08552,000.
Are you making that motion?
I'll make that motion. Second by Mr. Jones. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. That's it, right?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Now you're on third reading.
Okay, Councilman Egan moves for a second reading. Third reading. Second by Ms. Pagano. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance adopting the budget for the city of Florissant for fiscal year commencing on December 1st, 2018, and ending on November 30th, 2019, and providing for its effective date.
Before the final vote is taken, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this bill? Hearing none. Clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Yes. Parson?
Yes.
Cyan? No. Harris?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Egan?
Yes.
Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Bill number 9441 becomes ordinance 8467. Bill number 9442. Councilman Shildroth moves for a second reading, second by Councilman Harris. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance approving the Community Development Block Grant Fiscal Year 2019 Annual Action Plan for the City of Florissant, Missouri, and authorizing and directing the mayor to submit such plan to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Councilman Siam moves for a third reading, second by Councilman Hinkie. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance approving the Community Development Block Grant Fiscal Year 2019 Annual Action Plan for the City of Florissant, Missouri, and authorizing and directing the mayor to submit such plan to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Before the final vote is taken, does anyone like to speak on this bill? Hearing none. Clerk?
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Yes. Siam? Harris? Jones?
Yes.
Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Bill 9442 passes and become ordinance 8448. Bill number 9443.
8468.
What was it? 68. 68. I knew that. See, I caught you guys. You guys are listening. You're paying attention. Bill number 9443. Councilman Shildroff moves for a second reading, second by myself. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance to authorize amendment to V5 ordinance number 8105 to allow for the shopping center with a sit-down carry-out restaurant, Emos, for the property located at 15285 New Halls Ferry Road.
I will move for a third reading, second by Ms. Pagano. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance to authorize an amendment to B5 ordinance number 8105 to allow for a shopping center with a sit-down carry-out restaurant, Emos, for the property located at 15285 New Halls Ferry Road.
Before the final vote is taken, does anyone in the audience like to speak on this bill? Seeing none. Clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Siam? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Bill number 9443 passes and becomes ordinance 8469. Bill number 9444. Councilman Siam moves for a second reading, second by Ms. Pagano. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance to authorize a transfer of special use permit number 7018 from Cross Keys Auto Incorporated to STL Cheap Cars Incorporated for the operation of a used car dealership located at 14050 New Halls Ferry Road.
Councilman Siam moves for a third reading, second by myself. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance to authorize a transfer of special use permit number 7018 from Cross Keys Auto Incorporated to STL Cheap Cars Incorporated for the operation of a used car dealership located at 14050 New Halls Ferry Road.
Before the final vote is taken, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this bill? Seeing none. Clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Siam? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Bill number 9444 passes and becomes ordinance 8470. Bill number 9445. I'll move for a second reading, second by Mr. Hinkie. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance to authorize a transfer of special use permit number 8223 from Metropolitan Events LLC to Grace and Mercy Adult Day Program LLC for the operation of an event banquet center located at 11 Patterson Plaza Shopping Center.
I'll move for a third reading, second by Mr. Shildroff. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance to authorize a transfer of special use permit number 8223 from Metropolitan Events LLC to Grace and Mercy Adult Day Program LLC for the operation of event banquet center located at 11 Patterson Plaza Shopping Center.
Before the final vote is taken, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this bill? Mr. Egan.
Thank you. But it's been going on for some time, but I still have a substantial amount of questions about it. I would be interested in making a motion to suspend the rules of the petitions here so I could ask a few more questions.
Mr. Egan makes a motion to suspend the rules, second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Yes.
Please come forward if you're the petitioner. Thank you very much. If you'll go ahead and state your name for the record for Mr. Caputo.
Juanita Gillette, 11 Patterson Plaza.
Very good, thank you. You know, this has been a long process, and I still have some questions that aren't answered. If you just help me out a little bit, I'd appreciate it. Can you tell me precisely how many clients you plan on having? What's the maximum you'll have?
The max that we will have, we were actually going to go by what state allows for that, the square footage and the place at 11 Patterson Plaza. But right now, what we were thinking of was, before state came in, we were thinking of maybe 30, 35 clients.
And how many staff members for each client?
Staff members for each client, we have on the paperwork, I think it was for each client, it's, I'm not for sure, I don't have my paper with me. I think it was, there was a CNT. So about, yeah.
I'm the husband, Mark Gillette. Okay, there's going to be an assistant for every...
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Egan, we're on the, you want to save that for the next ordinance or the next bill?
Oh, this is for the, I'm sorry, I might have been confused. This is for the transfer to special use permit?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the next one we're talking about would be
Right,
the-
okay, yeah, I got confused. I
Jumping ahead a little
apologize.
bit.
I apologize.
Okay.
This is for the transfer, and I don't have any questions about the
Do we have
transfer.
any questions? It'd be on the next bill.
Okay.
So don't go nowhere.
Hang on.
Yeah,
Shall we stay?
there'd probably be more questions.
I think I already read it the third time.
Oh, yeah. I move for a third reading, second by,
Already read it for a third time.
ready for a third time.
We're ready to pull the
We're
council.
for the vote.
Yes, ready for the vote.
Yes.
I think that's where we are. Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson?
Yes.
Cyan? Harris?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Egan?
Yes.
Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Yes.
Bill number 9445 passes, becomes ordinance 8471.
You didn't call for anyone from the audience to comment on Bill 9445. Before passage, you're to call upon anyone in the audience who wants to speak on this bill. Again, this is the transfer of the banquet event center.
We got messed up because we suspended the rules. Okay.
Process is that
Right.
before you call for a final vote.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this bill? Seeing none.
Okay.
Stand corrected. Thank you, Ms. Cecil.
Okay.
Okay, bill number 9446. I myself will move for a second reading, second by Mr. Egan. Any discussions?
Now there's discussion.
Now, Mr. Egan.
Now I'd make the motion to have the petitioner suspend the rules and have the petitioner proceed to answer a few more questions.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Shildroff. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, so again, let's go from the beginning here. You think you're going to have a maximum of 30, you're going to have no more than 30?
Yes,
Yes, and for those 30 people, how many staff members?
one to each staff, one to each client.
So you'll have 60 people in the building?
No, that's not correct, sir. For each client, you have a C or NA for 8 persons, according to the Missouri.
For how many?
For every 8 person, there's
8
one
people.
assistant for every 8 person. So based on her numbers dealing with around 30, so you have as far as assistant would be 4 in that general area. Then you have a nurse that would be there if that be a case where we would need a nurse, and she would only be there 3 times a week. So we have different staff meeting to meet all the special needs, sir.
So you won't always have a nurse on?
No, a nurse would only be there 3 times a week, pertaining to how much is needed. You know, and we're going to work as needed, but we're basically averaging at least 3 times a week that a nurse would actually be needed.
But what if the nurse is needed
Then
and
we would have her more.
not there? I mean, it sounds like, can you give me an example?
If
What-
the nurses needed more, we would have her more. But as of right now, we're determining that we would only need a nurse 3 times a week. But if it needed more, then we would have.
What would constitute the need of a nurse?
If it's the case for medical situation is prescribing medication which would not be kept in-house.
I thought we talked that there was going to be no medication.
No medication. If in fact medication needed to be assisted by the nurse, if that be the case, it would be no medication kept on the premises. But if a nurse needs to assist someone with medication, you would
So they
have to
could
have
bring
a
their
nurse.
medication.
If in fact a nurse needed to assist someone in medicine, she would be qualified to.
So you plan on having, for every 8 persons, you're going to have a CNA.
Well, we have a qualified person, whether it be a CNA or what's the next one that they have, the other assistant that they would have. Pardon me?
I'm kind of under the weather right now, so.
Right.
Okay, I'm
The
sorry to hear
other-
that. It's a lot going around.
We would have a qualified person to assist the individual based on 8 person, you would have an assistant per the state regulation.
You have 8 to 1.
8 to 1.
Okay. And sometimes there's going to be a nurse there, and sometimes there's not. I would feel more comfortable if this was written into an ordinance than word of mouth.
Sir, it's as needed, depends on the client's needs. And we haven't determined the client's needs at this time.
Okay. How many sinks are in that facility, in this building?
We have 1 sink.
1 sink. And how many bathrooms?
We have 3 bathrooms. Sir.
Okay, now how are you going to designate the bathrooms?
The designated bathroom will be wherever the folks are located, then that's where the bathroom would be. And we have 3 rooms. Every room has a bathroom.
Okay, you have 3 rooms. And what does the state say as far as the number of bathrooms for every person?
The state would regulate that, sir, and that's why we.
Yes, they do. What do you know what they say on this?
Well, we can't even have a council with state until we get past this council, so we can go to state and we can discuss those matters. They're not even talking to us until we get an occupancy permit, you know. So we're waiting on you all so that we can get some of these answered question answers.
Okay, and we were talking to Mr. Lee earlier in the last public hearing. Is this going to be federally funded, these people that come and visit you every day? Is this a federal fund, is it a state fund, is it vouchers, or is this out of pocket?
Exactly. It's going to be primary private funds out of their own pockets and with the assistance of
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Also, some clients are going to be Medicaid.
And that's where state comes into play.
And your hours of operations?
From 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., sir.
Are you going to be shuttling people, picking people up?
No, sir, we're going to subcontract that out based on the client's needs. And that hasn't been determined.
And again, is everyone going to eat there? Are there facilities?
It's going to be contracted out. We don't have a kitchen, so we're going to contract it out.
Yes.
All right, now, I don't have any more questions. I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. You just stated, sir, I mean, this is another one. You said before, previous dates, that you will have medicine stored.
We never suggested that we would have medicine stored.
Then how is it the nurse is determined to give that medicine out? Say you have a person there on a daily basis that needs medication on a daily basis,
Yes.
one person, so you're gonna bring in a nurse for that one person every day, then who's gonna, hold on to her medication?
We are not storing medications. We're
The-
not.
Then who's gonna have the medication? That's what I'm asking.
He's talking about, I know what you're thinking of. The medication is going to be stored with a lockbox, and the nurse is going to be in charge of the lockbox for the medication. In the nurse's station, there's going to be a refrigerator there. We have that information from state. It has to be a refrigerator, and it has to be a lockbox for the medication for that day. But when the client leaves, that medication leaves with the client that day.
And that's what I
Yes,
was
sir.
stating. We won't keep the medicine overnight. And I thought that's what you was implying. It's not going to be kept overnight.
Right, correct. And with the bathrooms, I brought this up before. I don't know if you ever did this. Have you ever designated male bathroom, female bathroom?
Have we ever did that? Is
Because
that
right
what your
now
question?
you have co-ed bathrooms, correct?
Correct.
So you haven't determined the one bathroom in your one area is going to be for men only, then your bathroom in your other side of the building is going to be for females only. So it's, if you're in that room, whoever has to go to the bathroom is going to use that. They're all still co-ed, there's none
No,
determined
there
male
will,
and female?
there will be a female bathroom and a male bathroom, and the third bathroom is going to be for staff, or for the nurse's station, for anybody that the nurse is going to utilize that also.
So is your...
For staff and whatever the nurse wants to do. But there will be a female and a male bathroom.
Because I know at one time you don't have that designated.
No, sir. Not when it
mean,
was
For
the other
not,
thing.
even during the events, they were all
Right.
co-ed bathrooms.
Correct. Correct.
Ms. Pagano?
Hi. How are you?
Hi.
I'm getting over being under the weather, so bear with me. You just said, when Mr. Egan asked about sinks,
Yes.
okay, is there not a sink in every restroom?
Yes, there are sinks in every restroom. There's a double sink that is going to be utilized, and then there's going to be, what is that, a washing station, an eye washing station in the medical room for the nurse. But there is sinks in every bathroom.
Right.
And then there's a double sink that is, that we have to have due to state. That's required by state. But that's in there already, except the eye washing sink. That's not in there as of yet.
Okay, and the medication, I am not sure that a CNA can actually administer drugs.
Not a CNA, a registered
But you
nurse.
keep saying CNA. Are you going to have a registered nurse?
We do have a registered nurse.
Okay. I guess where I'm going, and I guess I've been confused all along, and I've been really trying to listen and really trying to question what this whole place is about. So we have the nurse's bed, and we have the station, and I talked to you last time about that and the location of it and the privacy and all that by the reception desk. But then you had, in another meeting, you were saying, like, there's pool tables and there's all these activities, and I'm like, well, is it a daycare or is it an adult activity center, or I don't know where I'm still totally confused on what actually this is, and now we're catering food in. I don't know. I really am still just having a problem because every meeting, it's a little bit different. So I didn't have problems with transferring the use permit, the special use permit, as far as let's get those events that you had scheduled out of here. This one, I'm sorry, but I just don't see it. I just don't, I can't figure it out. Maybe that's it. And I think that the state would tell you more before you got a place, because I'm sure that you would have to know. I mean, I wouldn't put a
Yes.
lease on a building until I thought I could get my license from the state. You know, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I would make sure I had the ducks in a row, and I think one would be getting everything from the state that I needed, and then go into a lease.
Yes,
Well,
they,
sir, we're not,
okay.
man, we're not coming in here blindly. We have professional daycare providers that's already have business that's assisting us with this and that's leading us on the way because of their experience in this program. And actually, we don't call it a daycare, but it's a day program where we are participating in activities, you know, with the clients that comes in. But there is a restroom, you know, in there, and then there's an activity room, and then there's different places where we can join in and communicate with people and provide information, education, and we continue to move forward in life, you know, to encourage them and to inspire them. You know, so we're not running a daycare program, so to speak. We're not doing so. We're providing activities, you know, and education, you know, and to have guest speakers to come in and speak on different subjects, and even if, you know, some of the places, some of the people could be local residents in the Florissant area, so we're open up to even having the different councilman to come in and to speak to people and different folks to educate people. You see, there's a program to enlighten people. It's not just where folks go in and they prepare to die. This is not that concept where a lot of the daycare programs are. We're encouraging people, but, you know, with uplifting spiritual things and to keep their mind active. A lot of folks get into senior ages and they just want to quit, you know, life, you know, and we're coming in with love. You know, you might not have heard anything like this because we're coming from a different point of view. You know, we're spiritual people. We mentioned that to you before, and we're being led by God to help the people because we believe it's not the government responsibility to feed the hungry and to clothe the needy. It's the church responsibility to look out for God's people. We're all God's people.
Right. I appreciate that.
Mr. Harris, you done, Ms. Pagano? Is that it?
I guess so. Go ahead.
Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Another question, who will manage and supervise the staff on a daily basis on site? Who will it be? So we have 4 CNAs, sometimes a nurse. Who's supervising, who's evaluating?
That will be me.
Okay.
That will be me.
Do you have any certifications in this type of work?
Yes, I do. I spent 23 years working in HR and have degrees and things like that. So that's my expertise.
And I have over 30 years in human resource. I'm retired military, 23 years, and one of my last duties was the IG at the 9700 Page. I was the assistant IG. So I have a lot of experience with human resource and managing people.
Yes, and then we have another a worker who has been in the adult daycare program for over 30 years. That's going to assist in everything.
In regards to the medications, what types of medications would require a nurse versus independent, you know, taking the medication independently? If a client could take a medication independently on Monday when there's no nurse, why would they need the nurse on Tuesday? Like, what kind of medications are we talking about that would need a nurse to dispense it?
Like some seniors may have medication that is prescribed by the doctor.
What classification of medication would that be?
You said classification? Well, if Well, I can just give an example of one of the patients being, maybe a dementia, a little bit of dementia. We don't go, it's stages. We're going to get records from doctors and things like that that the nurse is going to handle. But if they're like in the early part of dementia and things like that, and they're taking medication for that problem, then the nurse, and they need a nurse, the doctors are going to let us know if they need a nurse at that time or to administer the medication.
And can I just make it pretty much
Excuse me,
short?
sir. Excuse me. Mr. Hessel, do you have?
I wanted to comment.
I can wait until Mr. Harris.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment that no one will be administering medicine except the nurse. None of the staff will be administering any medicine, and the nurse would be the one that would administer any medicine that would be required if a person can independently administer it himself or herself.
Well,
I think actually
that's a law,
CNAs,
sir.
I think
That
actually
is a law.
CNAs sometimes can administer medications if they're med tech certified. So there is a certification there, but I don't know that we have all the details as far as how this is going to work. I'm concerned about that piece of it and how it's going to work
Matter of
out.
fact, these are some of the same questions that states are going to
Yeah.
ask. They're going to ask for a copy of all the medical records. So a lot of the questions that you're asking is the same question. State will be asking the same question. That we'll be providing that information when we come in contact with the client and with their records. We'll be able to provide it. So you're asking us questions that we don't
Mr.
have
President, I have no
access to
further
that
questions.
information as
Thank
of
you.
yet.
No further questions. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Mr. Hessel, would you like to speak, please?
If I may, Mr. President, I guess I want to follow up on Councilmember Pagano's question because I just heard two different statements. I heard Mr. Goulet, you say this was not going to be an adult daycare program. Then I heard Mrs. Goulet say that it would be an adult daycare program. So I need clarity on this because I believe that the state of Missouri requires licensing for an adult daycare program. And that is one of the requirements that was recommended by Planning and Zoning and is included in this ordinance. So it appears to me that it will be an adult daycare program,
But
correct?
the concept is not as a day program. It's a different concept where we are providing
Let me ask it this way. Can we agree that you will need licensing from the state of Missouri in order to operate your business conceptually or realistically as an adult daycare program?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Now, have you reviewed the the established regulations from the state of Missouri that allow an adult daycare program to operate?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's not within my area of expertise.
Right.
But Mr. Lum provided the mayor, city council, and staff with a brief summary of some of the regulations, and I included them in the pending legislation, and I encourage you to read that legislation. For example, as I understand it, and I wish Mr. Lum was here to confirm it, the plans would need to show a determined number of reclining chairs. I'm just
Exactly.
using that as one example.
Right.
But your current plans in front of the city of Florissant don't.
Well, we did provide on plans where it was 4 reclining chairs on the plan that I drew up. You see, there's at least four reclining chairs. That's what required by state.
Is there a separate resting area on the plans with beds? Because I didn't see those.
That's a separate resting area where the reclining chairs are. That
Right.
was also included in that activity plan that I've written up.
I believe it shows one bed for what you now told me was 30 clients. And I guess my point of this questioning is, my recommendation to the city council is don't proceed with this legislation until staff is comfortable that the plans that we have before us are at least consistent with the state regulations. And again, I'm going to admit to you, these are well beyond my area of expertise. I'm just identifying
According
what
to the
Mr. Lum
state-
identified to be state regulations that are applicable regardless of who you are and where you are. And I think the city council needs to be confident that those regulations can be satisfied.
And may I speak, sir? According to the state, we're required to have one bed in this particular case. Everything that we have has already been foreseen, and we've been advised on what we need to have. And we come to you all with that information we've provided for you per state regulation. And this is what we're requiring, and even to the point where we got to have a drinking fountain, and at least 2 drinking fountains. That's also in the floor plans that you were given, and you didn't mention about that. That's also included to include the refrigerator, the bed, and everything is there. Everything is there per the regulation, and even more information is going to be provided to state when we get access to the patient's record. As of right now, we don't have access to the patient record because we're pending this case to be closed so that we can move forward and start gathering our information, which is the same information you're requesting for state. And state is going to be the one that's going to oversee and to regulate the things and make sure that we're in top-notch condition. And if we don't pass state, this won't even go further. You know, a state is the one that was going to govern the how many, you know, whatever it is that we need. We've already got the stuff to the understanding of what we need. We're just looking for you all assistance to close this case so that we can move forward and start gathering information for state. So who's our final approval once we get through with going through the inspection. We got a lot of inspections ahead of us. You know, we got the occupancy inspection, we got the fire inspection. We can't even begin to get started, you know, with what we need to do. And the question, again, that you're asking is the same question state was requiring us to answer to them.
My advice remains the same.
Mr. Parsons.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My question actually is kind of correlates with what Mr. Hessel has already stated and asked. I kind of wanted to know how much involvement and how closely the state would be prior to your opening of this facility. Is there any plans that you guys have already had to submit to the state? Is there any written requirements that they have provided to you? How many inspections will the state make? Will there be inspections prior to your opening? Will all that happen? I mean, so, and I just heard you say, which was going to be my question too, if you don't pass all of those requirements, you don't open, right?
Exactly. Okay. And when we have to submit an application, we have to submit an occupancy permit with the application. They're not going to even talk to us until we get an occupancy permit. And we've been telling you this for the last 6 months. We can't even have a conversation.
The city council doesn't issue an occupancy permit.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Mr. Glay, this is the thing. You've been saying we've been doing this for 6 months, and every time you come up here, we get 6 months of different answers.
Well, what I understand is pretty much the same.
You understand it, but we don't understand because we're not getting the information that we need to make a decision on this. And me personally, this is me, I'm only one vote. I think we ought to settle this tonight. You had plenty of chance to get your stuff together, and I think we ought to close this tonight.
Sir, I believe we have answered your questions satisfactorily. Everything you've asked, we've given you the information that we have. You know, and there's some things that we're not going to even move forward. We're not going to move until we have completed with you.
What we're saying, though,
right,
sir, is we get different. Every councilman is asked a question, and you come up, and it's a different answer each time. We're always asking basically the same questions, and we're getting different answers. One day it's a daycare center, now it's a daycare program.
Right.
One day you're getting people coming in, now you say you can just have people come off the streets and come in and enjoy the facilities. Correct?
I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. I don't think you understand. I'm saying it's a
We still got
day.
Mr. Egan.
Well,
Mr. Egan.
I'm confident about Mr. Caputo.
I just wanted to explain your last statement, sir. It is a daycare, but we're saying it's going to be more than just a daycare. And we were adding more to it, just not like an average or a normal daycare as you would know it, but we're wanting to do more with the people. We want to get more involved in to assisting the living of people. And everything has been the same. Nothing's changed. It's just that it's open to the public, and that never changed. It's always been open to the public. So everything we've told you has stayed the same. Nothing has changed. Even the comments you just made, it has not changed.
Mr. Hinkie.
Yes, you've come to several times now, and this is like, for my phrase, like thumb deck and gel to the walls. But moving around, the answers have not been consistent. I don't care if your mind, I think your heart's in the right place, but the answer's not been consistent. We don't have any defined answers. We're opening a business here, and we can't get the answers to it. Mr. President, I call for the question.
Okay. Councilman Hinkie moves for a third reading, second by Mr. Egan. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
I'm just trying to remember where we were. We did have a second reading. I know. I was just trying to remember where we were. Ordinance to authorize an amendment to special use permit number 8223 previously issued for an event banquet center to allow for the, no, we didn't read this a second time. This is the second time. I haven't read it yet.
Yes, oh, yeah, that's right, it is, because we're in discussion.
Right, so I need to read it, and then
Okay.
we need to do third reading. The ordinance to authorize an amendment to special use permit number 8223 previously issued for an event banquet center to allow for the additional use as an adult day program for the property located at 11 Patterson Plaza Shopping Center.
Councilman Hinkie moves for third reading, second by Councilman Egan. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance to authorize an amendment to special use permit number 8223 previously issued for an event banquet center to allow for the additional use as an adult day program for the property located at 11 Patterson Plaza Shopping Center.
Before the final vote is taken, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this bill? Hearing none. Clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
No.
Pagano? No. Parson?
No.
Siam? No. Harris? No. Jones? No. Egan? No. Caputa?
No.
Shildroth?
No. Okay, bill number 9446 does not pass.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bill number
Thank you.
9447. Councilman Shildroff moves for a second reading, second by myself. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance repealing ordinance number 8283 and authorizing the mayor of the city of Florissant to enter into a contract with the law firm of Lewis Rice, represented by John M. Hessel, for legal services for the city of Florissant, commencing on December 1st, 2018, and ending on November 30th, 2019.
Myself, I'll move for a third reading, second by Ms. Pagano. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance repealing ordinance number 8283 and authorizing the mayor of the city of Florissant to enter into a contract with the law firm of Lewis Rice, represented by John M. Hessel, for legal services for the city of Florissant, commencing on December 1st, 2018, and ending on November 30th, 2019.
Before the final vote is taken, is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak on this bill? Seeing none. Clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Yes. Parson? Yes. Siam? Yes. Harris? Yes. Jones? Yes. Egan? Yes. Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Yes.
Bill number 9447 passes, becomes ordinance 8472. John, you got to put up with us for again.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Bill number 9449. Councilwoman Pagano moves for a second reading, second by myself. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance appropriating community development block grant funds for the 2018 fiscal year for the city of Florissant.
Second.
Ms. Pagano moves for a third reading, second by Mr. Hinkie. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance appropriating the community development block grant funds for the 2018 fiscal year for the city of Florissant.
Before the final vote is taken, is anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano?
Yes.
Parson?
Yes.
Cyan? Harris?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Egan?
Yes.
Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Yes.
That's it for first reading, or second readings.
Next item is new business. This passed, right? Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Oh, 84-7.
9449 passes and becomes ordinance 8473. Next item is new business, board appointments. Mr. Shuldroff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to reappoint Terry Ryder to the Citizens Participation Committee.
Second. Second by Ms. Pagano. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Appointment made.
Thank you.
Next item, request. Councilman Shuldroff moves to approve request for Christopher Teague to keep 4 chickens located at 276 North Costello Road. Second by myself. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. The application is approved. Next item is bills for a first reading. Bill number 9450.
Ordinance amending the zoning code to define installment lenders, redefine consumer loan company and short-term loan establishments, and add installment loan lenders as a permitted use.
Bill number
That need to be 3.
9451.
Ordinance to rezone for Smart Senior Living LLC, the property located at 1475 and 1415 Carla Drive from R6 Multiple Family Dwelling District to PEU Planned Environmental Unit to allow for the construction of a new senior living facility complex.
Bill number 9452.
Ordinance to amend B5 ordinance number 6836 is amended to allow for the additions to a Siteman Cancer Center located at 1225 Graham Road.
Mr. Shuldroff moves for a second reading, second by myself. All in favor? Aye. Any discussion?
Ordinance to amend B5 ordinance number 6836 to amend, as amended, to allow for the additions to the Siteman Cancer Center located at 1225 Graham Road.
Mr. Shuldroff moves for a third, second by Ms. Pagano. All in favor?
Roll call. Roll call.
Roll call.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Yes. Parson?
Yes.
Cyan? Harris?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Egan?
Yes.
Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Yes.
Ordinance to amend B5 ordinance number 6836 is amended to allow for the additions to the Siteman Cancer Center located at 1225 Graham Road.
Before the final vote is taken, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano?
Yes.
Parson?
Yes.
Cyan? Harris?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Egan?
Yes.
Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Yes.
Bill 9452 passes and becomes ordinance 8473.
4.
8474. Wrong one. That's right. We did the wrong one.
It's not over yet.
Right. Too many numbers in there. Bill number 9453.
Okay. Ordinance to amend Title II, Chapter 245, Parks and Recreation of the Florissant City Code, Section 245180, fees for use to adjust fees for use for various park facilities.
Bill number 9454.
Ordinance to amend Chapter 245, Parks and Recreation, Article 11, Old Florissant Golf Club of the Florissant City Code, subsection 245610, fees and charges to adjust fees for the golf course facility.
Bill number 9455.
Ordinance authorizing a transfer of $10,000 from account number 01548133030, medical insurance, to account number 01548100010, salaries to cover salaries for public works through the end of the fiscal year.
Councilman Egan moves for a second reading, second by Mr. Hinkie. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance authorizing a transfer of $10,000 from account number 01548133030 medical insurance to account number 01548100010 salaries to cover salaries for public works through the end of the fiscal year.
Councilman Egan moves for a third reading, second by myself. Roll call? I'm sorry. Is there anyone in the audience?
Roll call first.
Roll call.
And then
I did.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Siam? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth? Okay. Ordinance authorizing a transfer of $10,000 from account number 01548133030 medical insurance to account number 01548100010 salaries to cover salaries for public works through the end of the fiscal year.
Before the final vote is taken, does anyone in the audience like to speak on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Siam? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Bill 9455 passes and becomes ordinance 8475. Bill 9456.
Ordinance amending section 100090, schedule of court costs within the Florissant Code of Ordinances by adding a state court automated surcharge. Do you need that one, 3 readings?
Bill number 9457.
Ordinance repealing ordinance number 8182, establishing a new compensation plan for part-time employees for the city of Florissant and containing an effective date clause.
I'll move for a second reading, second by Mr. Shildroth. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance repealing ordinance number 8182, establishing a new compensation plan for the part-time employees of the city of Florissant containing an effective date clause.
Councilman Hinkie moves for a third reading, second by Mr. Shildroth. Roll call, please.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Siam? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth? Ordinance repealing ordinance number 8182, establishing a new compensation plan for the part-time employees of the city of Florissant containing an effective date clause.
Before the final vote is taken, does anyone in the audience like to speak on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Siam? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth?
Bill 9457 passes and becomes ordinance 8476. Bill 9458.
Ordinance amending section 125065A, job classification and grade level by adjusting and adding certain job classifications.
I'll move for a second reading, second by Councilman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Ordinance amending, sorry, running past you now. Ordinance amending section 125065A, job classification and grade level by adjusting and adding certain job classifications.
Councilman Shildroth moves for a third reading, second by Councilman Hinkie. Roll call, please.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Siam? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth? Where am I? Ordinance amending section 125065A, job classification and grade level by adjusting and adding certain job classifications.
Before the final vote is taken, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this?
Robert Smith, 2823 Chapel View Drive. What is the certain job classifications?
It's in the ordinance.
I'm sorry?
They're in the ordinance.
It's in the ordinance, you saying that
The ordinance is posted outside.
adjusting and adding certain job classifications. So it's in the ordinance?
Specific ordinance is posted out there, and it's specific in the ordinance. There's just a couple of positions.
And then I have one more question. Where do I find the pay scales for all these job classifications?
You can call my office and I can give you that copy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Parson? Cyan? Harris? Jones? Egan? Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth.
Bill number 9458 passes and becomes ordinance 8477. Bill number 9459.
Ordinance repealing ordinance number 8183, establishing a new compensation plan for seasonal employees of the city of Florissant and containing an effective date clause.
I'll move for a second reading. Second by Mr. Egan. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance repealing ordinance number 8183, establishing a new compensation plan for seasonal employees of the city of Florissant and containing an effective date clause.
Councilman Hinkie moves for a third reading, second by Councilman Egan. Roll call, please.
Hanky? Yes. Pagano? Yes. Parson? Yes. Cyan? Harris? Yes. Jones? Yes. Egan? Yes. Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth. Yes. Ordinance repealing ordinance number 8183, establishing a new compensation plan for seasonal employees for the city of Florissant containing an effective date clause.
Before the final vote is taken, does anyone in the audience like to speak on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Yes. Parson? Yes. Cyan? Harris? Yes. Jones? Yes. Egan? Yes. Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth.
Yes.
Bill 9459 passes and becomes ordinance 8478. Bill 9460.
Ordinance providing compensation plan for employees at their maximum pay rate for fiscal year 2018-19 and providing for its effective date.
Councilman Hinkie moves for a second reading, second by Mr. Egan. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Ordinance providing compensation plan for employees at their maximum pay rate for fiscal year 2018-2019 and providing an effective date.
Councilman Hinkie moves for a third reading, second by Ms. Pagano. Roll call, please.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Yes. Parson? Yes. Cyan? Yes. Harris? Yes. Jones? Yes. Egan? Yes. Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth.
Yes.
Before the final vote is taken, is there anyone in the audience like to speak on this bill? Seeing none, clerk, please poll the council.
Hanky?
Yes.
Pagano? Yes. Parson? Yes. Cyan? Harris? Yes. Jones? Yes. Egan? Yes. Caputa?
Yes.
Shildroth. Sorry, I wasn't expecting that.
Bill number 9460 passes and becomes ordinance 8479. Next item out, I make a motion we move to cancel the December 24th council meeting due to the holiday, Christmas Eve. Second by Ms. Pagano, Mr. Parson, the whole city council. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. December 24th meeting is canceled. Next item is council announcements. Mr. Jones.
Yep, I want to give a shout out to our food pantry team. There's always somebody hungry, morning, noon, or night. So keep that in mind with your canned goods and money in your pocket. Also, everybody watched your speed on Lindsay Lane. That has been dropped down to 25 miles per hour. I will be having an award meeting coming up sometime in January, and I will make sure that those cards get mailed out because I will personally be delivering them to the post office myself. Thank you very much. Oh, one more, wait.
One more.
There's a lot of construction going on in our streets in Ward 2. Probably the most in many, many years because of our street proposition that we voted on some time back. Please have patience and work around them the best you can. I know they're jamming a lot of people up, not purposely, about blocking the driveways off without them knowing. We have tried something new, but we are letting the residents know that there's going to be construction on their streets now. It is something that the city has not did in the past that me and Mr. Caputa both suggested and we are trying it. So we're gonna have some squeaks in there, but we're trying to make things better for the residents as we put our new streets in. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Yeah, I'd like to piggyback a little bit on team myself. I know that Florissant Police Department and the Hazelwood Police Department are having a little competition on see who can get some more food for team. And as a city of our size, I think we should smoke Hazelwood. So get on out there and donate the food to team. They have a drop-off at the police department, and there's other locations. I know that Cross Keys, Great Clips has a location.
Fire department too?
Firefighters. So if you're a Florissant City resident, please donate to team. It's for a good cause, plus we can raise more in Hazelwood. So another thing, firearms. If you're a firearm owner, make sure you secure your firearms. Keep them locked up. Be a responsible firearm owner. If you can't be a responsible firearm owner, you shouldn't own them. Make sure you keep them secured. Another thing, it's cold outside. People are starting their vehicles up in the morning. Make sure you attend them. Make sure you're in them. We've had a few car thefts because of that reason. People starting their cars up being cold in the morning. So make sure you're aware of that. That's all I have. Thank you. Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, in regards to that food drive, we'll never hear the end of it if we don't win this food drive. It's bad enough getting the needle from Matt Robinson, but I started getting the needle from Matt Zimmerman, and that's enough's enough. So I really need everybody to pitch in. We got to, like the council president said, we need to smoke Hazelwood on this contest. We had another contest, and we're going to announce the winners next meeting. And we have a contest for naming and finding the graphics for our anti-litter program. And at the December 10th meeting, we are going to present a gift certificate for dinner that I got for the winners. And we're going to announce the theme, show the graphics, and we're going to announce the we're going to make it, Mr. Caputo suggests we do it at the December 10th meeting, so it could be kind of like a New Year's resolution for the whole community to try to be litter-free. And so that's what's going to happen at the next council meeting, so be sure and tune in. We finally got Harry Truman dedicated after 2 tries. On a cold night, we had Dan the Piano Man with gloves on his fingers playing all kinds of Harry Truman favorites, but we did have a good time, even though it was a little chilly, so it didn't last as long as we would have liked to have it. But we did learn something, that it's been too long since we've had Dan the Piano Man as one of our entertainment venues, and we're going to have him at something else in the near future. Dan did a great job. On to the seasonal stuff. We got, everything I got is seasonal. So we got this Saturday, we're going to have our tree lighting ceremony here at City Hall. We're going to have activities for everybody here in the council chambers from 2 to 4:30, I believe, and then we're going to have the tree lighting shortly after 5, as soon as it's dark enough, which usually is about 10 or 15 minutes after 5. So we'll assemble out in front of City Hall, sing a few Christmas carols, waiting for it to get dark enough, and then our queen will throw the switch. And then after that event, we're going to have our, I think it's the 25th, maybe it's the 26th Project Liftoff. Who's counting? Anyway, we'll have, that's for the 5th through 8th graders. We'll probably have about 600 of them at the Egan Center. So if you like hanging around with 5th through 8th graders, be sure, we could use some help from the council members. Maybe city attorney can come up and help us with that event. It's always a lot of fun serving pizza. Got all kinds of chores for you to do. And then we got Deck the Halls. That's going to be on December 5th. They're going to decorate our trees at the John F. Kennedy Center and the Egan Center. So the children will make ornaments and stuff like that. So that's going to be ages 2 to 5 will be at 6, and 6 to 10 will be at 7. So that's at Egan and JFK. Christmas house decorating contest, you get your entry in starting, November 19th, but you got until Monday, December 10th to get your entry in, but it's 5 o'clock when City Hall closes, and then that'll be judged by our Youth Advisory Commission, and then we'll announce a winner. We're also going to have a snowman contest. Again, we didn't get any snow last winter. Hopefully, we won't have any contestants this winter either. But if we do, we're going to have a snowman building contest, and that will go till March 15th. So take a picture of your snowman. We'll visit with Santa on Sunday, December 15th from 10 to 11:30 at the Egan Center. And we got a winter break camp, kind of like summer camp, but during the winter Christmas break. It's the 26th to 27th and the 28th, and January 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3, and 4, not 1. We are also accepting letters from Santa at the JFK Community Center, and we'll make sure they get delivered to Santa, who is probably disappointed that we're not meeting on Christmas Eve. And that's it. Happy holidays.
He's busy.
He's magic.
Thank you, Mayor Schneider. Next regular meeting of the City Council will be on Monday, December 10th, 2018.
How about January?
Ms. Pagano moves to adjourn the regular meeting, second by myself. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Now, for some crazy reason, I don't have the budget ordinance sitting in front of me. I don't know what happened there.